With this class, we'll conclude our classes due to the arrival of the dear, honorable, blessed guest, the month of Ramadan. And this is the first Ramadan in nearly 3 decades, if not a little bit more, where I'm somewhat able to give daily organized khawatir in Ramadan, but I have chosen not to. Even in prison, when they would take us out of solitary and put us in general population, we had khawatir in Ramadan. And before the internet, we gave them in the masajid and the universities. And the reason for not having a series this year is because my father, my sheikh, the imam, and truly an imam in every sense of the word, and by choice, my only living friend, he, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a long life full of deeds, will be delivering inspirational khawatir this Ramadan that will rejuvenate our iman, insha'Allah, as his students announced. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a long life full of deeds. And I wish and make dua as well that he takes from my life to increase his. And that's a dua similar to the dua Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad mentioned about Harun al-Rashid. And Aisha wished the same about Muawiyah radiallahu anh. She wished that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a longer life and take it from hers. Al-Bukhari, not the famous Bukhari, Yahya ibn Ja'far ibn A'yan al-Bukhari, who's a muhaddith. He's a muhaddith, but not the famous one. He mentioned something similar. He's a muhaddith from Bukhara. He said about the famous Bukhari, Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, he said, if I can take from my life and give it to Muhammad ibn Ismail, the famous one, the one we all know, the one who compiled the Sahih, he said, I would, because he said, my death is the death of a single man. And the death of al-Bukhari, meaning Muhammad ibn Ismail, is, the famous one, is the death of knowledge. Humble, giant imams of hadith, muhaddithin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon them. What's astonishing is that the Bukhari who said that, Yahya ibn Ja'far, the one who said that statement, he was actually a teacher of the one he wished Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give him a longer life taken from his own. Not only does this show what I mentioned it for pertaining to the wish or dua that I stated, but another issue is that how ulama and students of knowledge treat each other. And it's something those who want to be on the pure path of Tawheed need to take heed of. My father will be having a series this year, inshallah. And instead of me having a series, I will bend my knees and sit under his feet to attain from his vast knowledge, inshallah. When there is a pure, vast ocean and you want to scoop out a lot of water, you don't go to a little pond. When there's a giant of ilm and you're able to reach him, as most are able to reach my father by contacting him, learning from him, asking him questions, studying his published books and works. If you have that ability and you go somewhere else less than that, less in knowledge, less in wisdom and age, like going to me, it's like doing tayammum when there's water. Who goes to dirt when there's water? So inshallah we'll benefit from his knowledge and from his manners and his experience and his age. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in his words. And inshallah we'll see the ikhlas and sense it with his words penetrating our hearts. Sometimes I sit in the library seeking a mas'ala, and I end up getting distracted with other masail. It leads to me opening other volumes and spending a lot more time on the side matters that I did not intend to research, and it happens quite frequently. Sometimes those matters that I research casually arise in a discussion in the presence of my father, and he gives ilm and summarized statements and opinions, a lot of the times more beneficial than the volumes I spent days researching. And he presents it in such an easy way to understand. And it reminds me that I once told this to a group of brothers, how I research and I end up getting distracted with other masail, and it ends up taking up my day or days after. And the brother said to me, the exact same thing happens to me when I go on social media. I try to go to beneficial accounts, then I end up getting distracted with other accounts, and by the time I realize it, the entire day or a great portion of it has gone by without any fruitful thing that I did during that day. If that happens, it's a catastrophe, because that chews up one's life and it impacts one's level in the akhirah without one even perceiving it. And I mentioned in the Tawheed class the value of time. And I mentioned this specific matter, and I said one shouldn't give it but a little bit of his time unless one is given da'wah, which will be, inshallah, means to raise his rank in Jannah. Now, as to our point, back to our point, it was supposedly narrated by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh that he said, you'll continue to be in good status so long as knowledge is taken from the elders in ilm and elders in age. And many who my father attained knowledge from are above the age of being great grandfathers to many young brothers seeking knowledge today. In fact, I don't know of any of his teachers who are alive. Among the last ones, if not the last one, is Abdul Qadir Shaybat al-Hamd, who lived nearly a century. He was approximately 100 years old when he died, and he died very recently. When you get knowledge from someone whose chain is so high in attaining knowledge, and who took from so many various ulama, you get the summarized vast knowledge of all those he attained knowledge from, combined with years and years of follow-up additional study that always improves the status of a student of knowledge. And in this case, you're getting 60 plus years of talab al-ilm. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a long life full of deeds. When the elders are donkeys of rulers with no credibility, then we reject them and their deviance. When giants and elders on the haqq step up to the podium, then those less than them need to step aside in accordance with, treat the people according to their ranks. And it wasn't only my father who I did this with. I did the exact same thing when Sheikh Hamoud al-Uqla was active, and likewise Sheikh Nasr and Sheikh Ali. From the early months of the internet being allowed in Bilad al-Haramain until the death of Sheikh Hamoud al-Uqla, and then continuing on with Sheikh Ali, Sheikh Nasr, until they had to leave Riyadh and go to Medina because they were being pursued, and then prison separated between us. We continued to promote their work and translate it and work on spreading it. فَكَّ اللَّهُ بِالْعِزِّ أَسْرَهُمْ. And even others who I was very close to, but they came out of prison, different people. Their deviance and nearness and kissing up to the tawaghit didn't get them anywhere. Rather, they're back in prison now, but it's not in our nature to gloat and relish over something like that. As to the ulama of Tawheed in prison, it's a duty on everyone to make dua for them and to spread their ilm. I actually go out of my way to quote some of those ulama by name. Why would you take the name out? It's very easy to take their knowledge. I could take something out of that, their ilm, and not mention their name. But why would you take that out? The purpose of it is to spread their ilm and to make the new generation aware of these giants, and so that people could make intensive dua for them, especially in this Ramadan. You've seen the level of this ummah when they intensely campaign for the release of someone who utters the kufr after the Islam. Even the submissive, degenerate murji'ah who are submissive to every authority there is, they joined in on this campaign. And the Imams of Tawheed, and many of their followers, the true descendants and followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, they're in prison, and practically no one even mentions them anymore. And likewise, our brothers and sisters who are on the haqq, who are in prisons throughout the globe, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten their release. The bottom line is, when we have ulama of haqq teaching, don't miss out on that golden opportunity. Beyond the textual knowledge they deliver, one learns a lot of wisdom, a lot of manners, and style of ibadah, and style of da'wah, and lessons that inspire one to better themselves. Many who think they're above, taken from ulama, are manifest with ignorance and lack of manners, and it's combined with arrogance and with the shaitanic vision that no one fills their eyes from the salaf or the khalaf. It's a dangerous path some take while alleging to be on the manhaj. Some let their ego get to them after delivering a few talks and finding a few followers. And they do so claiming to know Arabic, but then struggling with the ayat and the hadith and the Arabic terms they slip in to make it seem as if they have some ilm in some of the Arabic language. The jahl is one thing. That's not even what I'm trying to talk about. But it's ludicrous when it's compounded with discreet, open slander of others, whether it's in public or private. And a great reason behind most of this, behind the low standards in talab al-ilm and the issues that arise, is that people began to take from Google and books. Some were not able to reach the shuyukh and ulama of haqq, and they didn't want to go to the ulama in a'imma of dalal. They didn't want to lose their aqeedah. They wanted to maintain their aqeedah, and go into an imam of dalala may cause them to go into bid'ah or something bigger than that. They may be excused, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala find them a way out. But the majority were too busy in this dunya, and the opportunity came where they can present themselves in front of their phones and make money off their da'wah. They're not willing to sacrifice and sit at the feet of the ulama and learn in the real classical systematic way of talab al-ilm. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow you and your families to reach Ramadan, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you the tawfiq and barakah in your time to attain firdaus through this Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free your necks from Jahannam. I'll conclude with what Mu'adh said on his deathbed. Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu an was on his deathbed in his very final moments, as Ibn al-Jawzi mentioned, and Imam Ahmad mentioned it in his Zuhud, and Abu Nu'aym mentioned it as well. Mu'adh radiallahu anh said, I seek refuge in Allah from a night its morning turns out to be in Jahannam. What a horrific statement. I learned that when I was a teenager, and it keeps ringing in my ear. This is the man who the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Ya Mu'adh, wallahi inni la uhibbuk. Oh Mu'adh, wallahi I love you. Imagine a night you're at peace and ease in this dunya. A night you're in full control. If a fire were to break out where you're at, you have the full power to extinguish it. You have the full power to defend yourself. You can flee and escape from it. There's many opportunities to get away from it. But imagine a morning of that night spent helpless before Allah in Jahannam. Wal-'iyadhu billah. We seek refuge in Allah from that, as Mu'adh radiallahu anh sought refuge in Allah from that. Then Mu'adh welcomed death. He said, welcome to death. And he said, oh Allah, I used to fear you, and today I have hope in you. Allahumma innaka ta'lamu anni kuntu akhafuk fa ana al-yawma arjuk. Then he said, Ya Allah, I never loved dunya except for lidhama il-hawajir. He's taken his last breaths and he's seeking nearness to Allah in his most cherished deeds. His most cherished deeds are what he loved in this dunya. لِضَمَ الْهَوَاجِرِ. Dhama al-hawajir means fasting the long, thirsty, hot days. لِضَمَ الْهَوَاجِرِ وَمُكَابَدَةِ السَّاعَاتِ. Standing up the long hours in qiyam. لِضَمَ الْهَوَاجِرِ وَمُكَابَدَةِ السَّاعَاتِ ومزاحمة العلماء بالركب عند حلق الذكر. And crowding my knees with the knees of the ulama in the halaqat. It's a figure of speech to indicate the love of joining the halaqat of the ulama. Keep in mind, he was the man that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وأعلمهم بالحلال والحرام معاذ بن جبل. The most knowledgeable in halal and haram is Mu'adh ibn Jabal. But he never got enough. Qiyam, Siyam, and Talab al-Ilm. These are the deeds he mentioned in his very last precious moments and in his dua, seeking nearness to Allah with them, because they're special ibadat. Insha'Allah, you put emphasis on these in this blessed month, so when you meet Allah, you mention them as Mu'adh did. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.